So hello, John Millar, welcome in.
Hi there, Clara. Hi there.
Now, you are a co-founder of the One Chi project, along with myself and Jeremy. And we've been asking some questions, just some really fundamental ones about Qigong and where you're coming from and what you love about it. So the first question is probably the most obvious, which is how, how did Qigong find you?
Um, I was interested in sort of world religion, spiritual practices, and I'd been searching for a while. My father was a minister in the church, and his final words to me on his deathbed is, "Go and find something that works for you." So I went searching, and along the way I found a Reiki teacher who I agreed. I asked him to do my Reiki 1 with me, and he took one look at me when I turned up for the session. He said, "You're going to hate this," but he said, "You're the type of person that would like Qigong." And I was like, "What?" And so he showed me a little bit of Qigong, and I was like, "Yeah, that's interesting. Now let's get on with the Reiki." And I did the Reiki, and I can't say that I hated it, but it never gave me the depth of understanding that I found within Qigong. Marcus, my teacher, just recognized something in me that resonated. And then I think it's one of those things, once you see it, it starts to crop up in all kinds of places. And yeah, it's just there. And you just grab it and go for it.
So it's something you recognize, isn't it? Did you find that, just recognizing an energy or a reconnection of something that, as you say, is already there?
Yeah. And it just seems to turn up, doesn't it? I mean, my first real teacher was, he was visiting, he was he was a Tibetan Buddhist. He was a Chinese Tibetan Buddhist, which was unusual. And it was his first real trip to the West. And he spoke no English. And he turned up in Ipswich. And you're like, okay, we'll go with this then.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just been a sequence of happy coincidences combined with my inability to say no to things.
Oh, right. Yes. Which is partly how this project came about, through a conversation where we just all went, yes.
Yeah.
For that, yeah. No, I thank you for that. So what is it that you particularly love about Qigong?
I guess for me, I've always had a thing about simplicity. For me, there's always been this thing that runs through everything that I do, that at some point it becomes simple. And having studied through quite a different number of schools and sanctioned to teach in quite a few of them as well, the place that I've ended up is in a system that can have this massive ability to be simple. And the simplicity means that it can be shared with anybody. So, I've worked in some of the most unusual places you can imagine, but because there's a simplicity and just a coming together and a sharing, and there's a recognition of the shared space that we work with. So whether it was the time that I've spent working with some of the world's top nuclear physicists in the south of France, yeah, that was an entertaining one. Explaining the concept of Qi to them and talking about how it works from a leadership perspective. I also spent time working with the Saudi military out in Saudi Arabia. And to me, a practice that can talk to physicists and also in such a strict Islamic state and still have deep relevance within our community, I just can't think of anything better to dedicate myself to.
Yeah, that is beautiful, and it's so true. The simplicity, but it's also a challenge, isn't it, John?
Yeah, it has to be. If you simply spend your time going through something that feels very comfortable, all you learn is to be comfortable. You need to find the challenges within the practice. You need to be willing to push yourself in order to actually keep breaking through.
That's it. So the word simple doesn't necessarily mean easy, because let's look at Wu Chi, the standing posture, the fundamental, where you all start and go back to stand still is a challenge, but it's a simple practice.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. So do you adhere to any strict lineage at all?
I'm going to have to say no, but it always feels like a slightly sticky question to me. I was really anti-lineage for quite a while. The sort of, when we started doing teacher training, one of the pieces of information that came through is that you will only ever be able to teach 25% of what you know to the person that you're teaching. And this is an academic piece. But the implication is that first generation only know a quarter of what the founder knew. Second generation, no, my maths isn't that good. Third generation, fourth gen. And so I was looking at lineages and going, why bother? Just why bother? But actually, it's far deeper than that. I think that there is something really powerful about recognizing something that has been effective for a long period of time. And although, again, I could have great long conversations about transmission and how that can work, and in a positive way and a negative way, I think there's great power within the lineage forms, but I'm also a great fan of making it relevant and adaptable. So if I was into a lineage form, and my first teacher was very much a lineage holder, so my first training was in a lineage form, but it didn't have the adaptability, it didn't have the simplicity that I now love about the practice. But that's because I love going and sharing it in unusual places. You know, as a personal practice, I think you choose your style, you choose the way that you move forward. So
that's a really, really good answer. So you've had the experience, like I have as well, and it does have huge value. And I'm sure we're going to have people on in this project who do have a strict lineage practice, and it's going to be so interesting to hear from them what they get from it. But I'm with you around that adaptability of being with a range of different peoples, because we are Westerners, but we have a sensitivity and a sensibility around energy, and we're learning so much from the wealth of information around Qigong. And yet, if it's too structured, then anyway, we could, as you say, we could really go off on a long one here, and we're not going to do this right now, and I'm sure we will.
I think the one thing that's really important to throw in there, though, because it's something that is massively important for me, is to go back to source as often as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you don't go back to source, if you don't go back and investigate where it came from, you miss so much of what's actually within it.
Right.
You end up going off on your own exploration without actually paying respect to the people who've gone before and done the explorations for themselves. So there's definitely a balance there, and I would encourage anybody to go and spend time working with people who've really dedicated themselves.
And this is another point, isn't it? Encourage people to do their own research, to train with other people, to find their Qigong.
Yeah.
Not just follow somebody else. So what overall, it's not going to be an easy question for you to answer this one, but what have you gained? What's the biggest gift that Qigong has given you?
I'm going to have to say I don't know. No idea. I was actually having a conversation with Jeremy earlier, and it was about the reasons that people come into Qigong. And what I find is a lot of the people that I work with come into Qigong because there is a very specific need. So they may have had some kind of health crisis within their life. They may have had some kind of emotional crisis, and they're looking for something that's going to support them through it. And when people come with that type of thing, the gift that they initially get is that. It's the ability to overcome an illness. It's the ability to overcome mental health issues. And this is a really big thing to step into. But then after that, the gifts become more subtle, and you don't necessarily see them moving through. Now, for me, my big sort of meltdown happened as a Qigong teacher. That doesn't sound like an advert for Qigong, but actually it becomes fascinating. There's a whole piece there we can talk about around how Qigong can be misused to hold you in places of difficulty. But that's not for now. But my routine was fairly smooth. Then I had this sort of big shake-up, And then if I look back year on year, you can sort of see things that have happened, but it's all very subtle. There's been no eureka moments. And I'm always reminded of a story. And there was some people who came to the class, a husband and wife, and the wife had some significant health issues that she was trying to deal with, and the husband came to give her a lift, and basically spent most of the time. He was fun to be around, but he wasn't the most respectful. We'll just leave it at that. And then after about a year, the husband, unbeknownst to me, had a spinal injury when he was young, and wasn't able to actually play with the kids, run up and down hills with them and stuff, because he had limitations. And after he'd been coming to the class for a year, he turned around and said to somebody who had just started, "Oh, it's great." He said, "I've now got all my mobility back. I'm running up and down the hills with the grandkids." And there was a conversation that went on after this where the wife was saying, "How come he gets the benefit?" And it was, well, he wasn't looking for anything. He was able to just let things continue to build. And I'm very much into that. If I'm not looking for the benefits, they just keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming. And I certainly wouldn't be in the place that I am today without having dedicated my time to Qigong, to practice. So, yeah.
That is so zen. I mean, that is so cool. I wasn't looking and it just came and hung out with me. But isn't that true of Qi? If you touch on it, oh, I must feel the Qi between, it's going to go, I'm going to, no, exactly. So the more we step back and allow, and this subtleness and the power of the subtle way that Qi moves through us. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Good story as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had 2 minutes to share something with us, like an exercise or meditation or something, what would you do?
Okay. There's an exercise within the Qigong system called La Qi. And I believe that there are only fundamentally 2 things that you do with Qigong. You either move or you stand still. And so I'd introduce people to La Qi. I'd introduce them to La Qi in a very soft way. Do you want to have a go? Do you want to have a play? Okay. So, yeah, okay. So it was a very simple introduction. This is my house. I've been living in my house now for well over 50 years, and I'm a hoarder. It's packed full of junk. It's packed full of ideas and information. So what the La Qi practice is about, it's about decluttering my house. So the thing is that when you start to declutter your house, you'll probably go into the room that you perceive is going to have the most benefit from clearing out. So in the house that I live in, you walk into the kitchen. So it's a bit like clearing out the kitchen. So the practice initially is simply expand out into blue sky, create space, and then draw blue sky back in. And this is all La Qi really is. It's expanding out into blue sky, creating space, and drawing blue sky back inside. So it's a very simple practice, but don't be fooled. It's hugely powerful, because if just clearing out the kitchen, you start to look at the whole house. So you start to go up into the loft and you're sort of clearing out here and you're going expanding out into blue sky and gathering back. You'll find there's all kinds of different things that happen up here, different emotions, different responses, different ideas. You know, it could be that you decide to explore the cellar. So you can take the movement all the way down, and you can use lower movement of expanding out and gathering back. You can use it anywhere, but the basic practice is simply expand out into blue sky, draw blue back inside. And blue sky is just this wonderful, clean analogy that anything, but it means something to all of us. So it doesn't matter what it means to everybody. It's just this clean place. It's refreshing and it's empowering. Now, I'm not big into rules, but there's a rule. And the rule is basically, when you finish, gather Qi back. One hand on top of the other, on top of the abdomen, on top of lower dantian. and take a moment to come back inside. So I don't know, that was probably more than 2 minutes. It's very difficult to
yeah, but it was
to stick to
great,
timings.
because if I said 5 minutes, we'd have been here for 7.
Oh yeah.
But no, that was so beautiful, because for me that was I could feel the energy as you were moving that, and it felt very like an expression of the breath, like taking the breath into a bigger movement. And of course we know that when we coordinate breath with movement, it really is so empowering and so respectful to our system. So thank you, John, for introducing us to that.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being part of this project. So let's see what we can get up to next.
It's exciting, isn't it? The idea of bringing people together, having great conversations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for this one. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye for now.